Hey guys, Conceptual BJJ back with another video. Today we're going to be covering the cross choke from mount and how to finish against a resisting opponent and some of the details that will help you get a higher finish rate with your cross chokes from mount. So when John's down, I want to cover a few basics of just maintaining mount here, right? Because it does us no good if we go for the cross choke but we lose the position, right? So I want to make sure that we maintain control of the mount position. Something that you want to avoid doing is having your hips too far floating off of him to where, especially if he's strong, he can start pushing my hip, framing, getting the half guard. He can start pushing me off. So I want to use my hands here in front, pushing my hips back down towards his legs like this and squeezing my knees in. I'm trying to touch my toes together. If my feet are out like this, it makes it easy for him to get a leg flat and start putting me into half guard, okay? So if we can't get our feet under our legs, we're going to still put them next to his hips like this and tucking our toes under his butt, okay? We don't want our toes on the mat because he can use that to hook my foot here. So he takes the top one, he can hook my foot. So toes curled under his butt, I'm pushing my hips back like this. So what John's going to do is if he's trying to push up my hip, he's going to be opening up his neck to grab the collar and he's going to have to start defending the choke. Right? What a good opponent is going to do is they're going to cross their arms and defend the choke from the beginning. So keep that in mind. If somebody starts to escape, we can start to attack their neck. It doesn't even have to be a full cross choke. We can just grab a thumb and grip and start to pressure to bring his hands up. Now he's no longer focused on escaping with the hips, right? We also covered this in another video about maintaining mount with attacks. But for this, we're going to assume our opponent's smart where he's crossing his hands like this to avoid us getting into his lapel. So there's several ways that we can get in with the lapel. So when we have a good opponent defending, whether we start to attack the neck or he's defending on his own because he's prepared for our attack, right? Any good opponent is going to keep their hands up to help prevent the collar grips from us getting any kind of choke, right? So when he puts his hands in place, I'm going to pay attention to which one is his top arm. And I'm going to focus on going under the bottom arm. If I lift up the collar to slide in under the space here, he still has his bottom arm to protect it. So I need to make sure I need to get under that bottom arm. So I'm going to go and open up the same lapel side that his bottom arm is. This is important. It's going to be a little bit easier to get under. So whichever one his bottom arm is, I'm going to lift up the lapel so you can open it. And it's going to leave a little bit of space. No matter how tight he is, it'll open up a little bit of space for my hand to slide through here. And now don't try to grab the collar, right away because he's going to start defending the grip. What's more important is that I slide and get my forearm close to the neck. So a lot of times I'll first take this thumb down grip just to make sure my forearm's against the neck. Sometimes it's a little harder to get your forearm against the neck like this. It can be harder. So a lot of times I'll take a thumb down grip. When I open this lapel, I'm going to open this and pull up on the lapel, and I'm going to put my elbow behind my hip. So it's not just the force of my hand, but it's the force of my hip also driving. So I'm going to drive with my hip to slide this hand all the way through. And what was really important is that I get my forearm close to his neck. So I'm trying to get my forearm in contact with his carotid on this side and bring my elbow down to his chest. If I keep my elbow up, he can go under this hand and block and start blocking this. And now his whole forearm's in the way. It's going to be really hard to choke through this. So when I'm feeding this through, I'm making sure my elbow is behind my hip and my elbow is also attached to his chest, sliding up his chest. If I leave space with my elbow, he's just going to defend like that. So as I open this space, I'm sliding my elbow close to his chest and I can pull up on the lapel and start climbing this grip. At any point, because my arm is trapped, it seems like he can just bump me off, right? At any point, I have to be aware. And because my arm's trapped on this side, I have to be aware that I'm vulnerable to being bumped on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lean my weight over here to this side of his body to where I can base with this hand. So if he tries to bridge this direction, my weight's too far this way. So if we're over here. So he tries to bridge to his left, like my weight's over here, it's going to be hard. If my weight's like this, too far, and I'm not based, he might cause me to fall but you need to be ready to base at any moment. So once I grab this grip, I'm almost like pulling up on it a little bit to drive my elbow even harder in his chest so that he can't get this arm through. If he tries to feed this arm through now, you can't really get it under my elbow. If I lift it up, he can defend, right? So here, I open up the lapel. He's crossed here. I go under the bottom arm. So he's gonna be blocking with his hand, but I'm gonna keep climbing up the grip to keep my forearm connected to his neck. Now what I wanna do is I like to fold the gi to make it tighter. So if you can see my grip here, if I pull on the lapel, it takes the slack out and it's hard for me to grip the gi. So I'm gonna loosen up the grip a little bit to where I can fold the gi. I don't know if you can see my fingers here inside. My 4 fingers are folding the gi like this. Now this is a really, really tight grip versus just grabbing here. I'm trying to grab as much cloth as possible. So I will actually fold the gi like this and try to curl my fingers to grab as much cloth as possible. The more cloth you have in your hand, the tighter your grip's gonna be. So it's gonna be a little easier. I'm also making sure my forearm's in contact with the neck. I don't wanna be out here. I wanna be, my forearm is close to the neck and my wrist is curled this way to get close to the neck. I don't want my wrist like this. My wrist is curled towards his neck. Like this. So now, once I grab this grip, I'm gonna make sure my base is really wide. So my hand's gonna be my base. And it needs to be far out here. I need to make sure that my base is good. So what I'm gonna do is to make sure I can stay connected and keep him from pushing me off, I'm gonna put my feet at his hip like this when I'm basing like this. So when he goes to bridge, now his hips aren't really gonna affect me too much. If I'm back here, it's hard for me to base far with my hand to really stop the bridge. So when I start committing to the choke with the second hand, I'm gonna climb up and put my feet close to his hip. So now he goes to bridge, I can like stay far from his hip, and it's almost like a closed guard where you put the foot on the hip to get an angle, right? So I'm keeping my feet connected to his hip. I base far. And the important part is to also get deep on the second grip because he's still going to be defending with this hand here, right? He's going to keep his hands in. And he's going to try to keep this hand from coming over. Sometimes they'll put it on their face to stop this, so it might be hard to grip. So what I like to do is I walk this hand over, and what you don't want to do is put your head next to his head while you're doing this, because if I'm like this, at any point he's going to bridge me to his left, and I'm going to fall. So what I want to do is base wide. I'm going to put my head not close to him, but far over here. Now I'm gonna open his head with my elbow. So when I open the top of his head with my elbow, it now allows me to grab this gi. Because if his ear's to his shoulder, it's really hard to get this deep grip. So I'm gonna use my elbow to open up his head to get this really deep grip, almost trying to grab the back of the tag, like as close as I can towards his neck. Now once I get this grip here, the choke's pretty much gonna be done. If he tries to bridge me, my head goes far. If my head goes close, he can bridge me, and I'm gonna fall. So my head goes far. When I'm ready, I go back square with him. After he's done bridging, right? You come back square with him. I rotate my elbows down towards his chest. I'm gonna fall with my head forward, down towards the mat, and trying to rotate to my left. So my head goes this way in a circle, like this. And it shouldn't require a lot of squeezing pressure. I see a lot of people trying to do this with their elbows, like open their elbows. But what happens is this bottom lapel is the part that's actually choking him. My forearm is driving his neck and his head into that lapel. Or into your forearm, whatever's there. You can also do it with the lapel. This bottom arm is pulling towards my hip. This top arm is driving into his hip. So I'm doing like a turning motion where I'm pulling with this one and I'm turning using my body weight and this forearm to pressure into the choke. It creates a constriction to where this one is going against his neck and this one is pulling the opposite direction. So we need two opposing forces. So what I don't want to see is your elbows flare like this. This isn't nearly as tight as it could be. So I come in and I pull down towards my hip. with my bottom hand. And I keep rotating my body towards my left, which is gonna drive my top forearm into his neck and make him look into the choke. So my top forearm's doing this, driving into his neck as I rotate this way. My bottom forearm is pulling this way towards my hips. So I'm grabbing and pulling. So it's like this, pulling, and I'm rotating. It's really tight. So again, he's defending here. If he has one arm on top, I'm gonna go towards the bottom arm. I open the lapel, and I'm trying to immediately drive my forearm to touch his neck. Don't worry about climbing and gripping the lapel, because then that'll stop you and he's gonna start defending early. So if you see a gap right away, just drive your arm immediately with whatever you can grab. Like, you don't have to grab anything initially, just make sure your forearm's in contact with his neck if you have a gap, right? So you don't need to wait and climb the grip. Because if he sees you climbing the grip, he's gonna start defending more, right? So you can be here as he's defending and just shoot your forearm through like that. Now you can worry about getting the grip. You can adjust it, fold the gi, and keeping your elbow down the whole time so he can't defend, right? Elbow to the chest always on the first arm. Second arm, I'm gonna make sure my base, so he might be bucking here. I'm gonna make sure my feet are at his hips now and keep my base wide. So I'm gonna wait for him to buck. If he's gonna buck, keep my weight over here. When I feel like he's settled down, I'm gonna keep my base wide. I don't wanna be close. Base wide. So he goes to bridge here, really hard to move me. Even like push with your hands, like really hard to move me. When I feel like he's used some energy and calmed down, I can put my head far on the mat. Remember, not next to his head, because you're gonna end up getting rolled. Far on the mat, I'm gonna open his head. I'm gonna grab the lapel, and then I'm gonna rotate over. As he bridges, I'm gonna lift my head forward. I wanna stay here, because he bridges, I'm gonna fall over and have to base. So as soon as I get this grip, I'm gonna move my head far forward to my left and pull with my right elbow back. So I'm rotating this way, using my top arm to drive and make his head look into the choke and on his neck. And this one is pulling towards my hip, like this. And you can also rotate your wrists and use your wrists as well. That's really important. So I'm rotating my wrist, turn into his neck, curling up. Another good part of this choke is because the grips are so deep, even when he defends, so let's say you get your elbow to the chest, so he can't get this arm underneath to defend because you're leaving your elbow down, right? But he can still use this one. So sometimes they'll put it on their face, like holding the telephone, like this. So the good thing is when this grip is so deep, I can use this to scrape off his fingers. I can get this really tight and like scrape down his neck. And even if he has his fingers in a little bit, it's still gonna choke through that. It's a really tight choke.